Well, April's over, and we've had some stellar games. But now, we're already a few days into May, and you know what that means. This month's release video is officially running late. But hey, it wasn't my fault this time. I swear I didn't get sidetracked, binging one of the biggest releases so far this year. The real culprit was a bunch of last minute game delays that forced me to rewrite the whole script. I'm mainly looking at you, Lost Souls aside, but there were a few others. But silver lining though, I ended up finding even more games worth talking about. Anyway, without further ado, I'm Jamison, and here are 10 games dropping at the start of May that definitely caught my interest.
Starting off our list at number 1 is a game I remember being announced over a decade ago, back during the 360 era of gaming. And yeah, I'm not kidding, and nor am I losing my mind. It did exist, it was announced, and despite practically being finished and complete, it was promptly cancelled due to the developer going to hell, and that game is Captain Blood, formerly known as Age of Pirates Captain Blood. Now, if you're curious how on earth this revival is even seeing the light of day, well, that's thanks to Sneg, the publisher that dug it out of development hell and decided to finally let it breathe a little. The revival happened when they picked up the rights and decided to give it just enough of a polish to bring it up to modern system specs. It should be as no surprise that you will play as the grizzled and rough around the edges Captain Blood, a privateer who finds himself neck deep in betrayal, treasure hunts, and revenge as he tears across the Caribbean in that classic pirate fashion. The story is very much in the mould of old school pirate adventures, meaning it's full of double crosses, curses, and those over the top villains who look like they've been waiting their entire lives to give that never-ending monologue. Gameplay-wise, it is a third-person action RPG combat thing with a heavy focus on brutal melee combat, meaning sword fighting is going to be fast, weighty, full of parries, combos, and bloody finishes that are all designed to lean into that gritty, arcade-style vibe. Along with the swords, you've also got dual pistols for some flashy mid-fight blasts, and of course, there are naval battles where you command your ship and lay waste to enemy vessels with cannon fire. Think primitive Assassin's Creed Black Flags. And along with this, there's even a light progression system that lets you upgrade weapons, unlock new moves, and tailor Captain Blood's combat style a bit to your own personal touches. Along with this, you'll also visit ports, engage in arena duels, and occasionally you'll solve simple puzzles tied into story progression. And visually, the game screams early 2010s. It's gritty, chunky, clunky, and looks exactly like something you'd find on a scratched up 360 or PS3 disc in your old game drawer. And honestly, I'm here for it. So if a swashbuckling adventure of piracy out on the high seas, all wrapped up in a nostalgic graphic style, sounds like your cup of tea, Captain Blood may be the game for you, and it will be available on May 6th for PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, and PC. Next on our list is a brutal sci-fi shooter RPG that gives off some definite Doom Eternal vibes, mostly thanks to the sheer number of bullets constantly flying across the screen, and that is Metal Eden. Now, this one had me going back and forth between, yeah, that looks cool, and maybe not, with the only thing that's kept me hooked being the story it's been teasing. But from the latest things I've seen, barring any changes pre or post release, I do think I will be giving it a go eventually, but only time will tell. Metal Eden is set in a dystopian world where biotech experimentation has turned Earth's last hope into a raging war zone. In it, you'll play as a genetically engineered soldier who's part man, part machine, and mostly pissed off. The combat is a high-speed, twitchy first-person barrage of bullets, lasers, and explosions, and there's a definite FPS rhythm to the gameplay, dash, shoot, reload, repeat. It does show heavier RPG elements like stat progression, weapon mods, and ability trees, so you will be upgrading your gear between missions, customizing your loadouts with elemental ammo types, and unlocking brutal melee finishes to make the fights feel a little more personal and to your own style of gaming. It also leans into a narrative with lore-heavy exploration sections and morally murky choices that apparently alter parts of the campaign, though how deep that rabbit hole goes is still unclear. And like I said, I personally won't be picking up a copy straight away, but I'll definitely be keeping my eye out to see how it's received, and then maybe picking one up later once I know it is what we're after. But if you can't wait and it does sound like something you're into, you can grab a copy of this game on all major consoles as well as PC when it drops on May the 6th. At number 3 on my list, we've got a rather unique blend of survival horror and top-down crafting, and that is Railgods of Hystera. Now, how do I summarise this in a way that anyone can understand without getting shot by one of the fandoms I compare it to? Think old school Fallout, the top-down kind, mixed in with some roguelike movement, and then add in some survival mechanics and base building, but the twist is all this base building and level upgrades take place on the back of a monstrous train. So imagine the Mugen train from Demon Slayer, but with way more cosmic horror going on. You'll have to manage your character's hunger and sanity and keep the train fed, either with mush or live sacrifices, that's up to you. And one of the more unique aspects of this is madness. It acts as a debuff, but it's also an incredibly valuable resource, as it can be converted into XP for upgrades using one of the train's onboard workbenches. There is also online co-op for up to 4 players, meaning that you won't have to scavenge, craft and survive on your own. So all in all, it's going to be a great survival game whether it's solo or together with friends, and personally I think playing with friends is going to lead to some crazy situations. If all this sounds like your brand of weird and twisted fun, then Railgods of Hystera might just be the trip you're looking for, and if you want to pick it up, it'll be available on May 7th for PC only at this stage. Next up, we have a sequel to a game series I've never even heard of until learning about this one, and that is, yes your grace, Snowfall. It's a cinematic kingdom management RPG where you play as a war-weary king juggling the demands of his people, the safety of his family, and the crumbling state of your once proud kingdom. Inspired by Slavic folklore, the game drops you into the throne room, where a never-ending line of petitioners file in to dump their problems on your royal lap. You'll have to decide who gets your help and who gets turned away empty-handed, all whilst rationing gold and supplies, passing laws, and bracing for an impending war that looms on the horizon. And no, you don't need to have played the first Yes Your Grace to enjoy this one. Snowfall includes a short cutscene right at the beginning to catch you up on the majority of story details, so you're not going in blind if this is your first time ruling Davin. Like the original, Snowfall doesn't pull its punches, it's bleak, morally grey, and full of tough choices that'll make you feel like a terrible person even when you're doing your best. You'll recruit agents, each with their own quirks and drama, to help resolve kingdom affairs, all whilst trying to keep your family safe and emotionally intact. And yes, your children grow up through the story, which somehow makes every decision hit that much harder. So if you're into story-rich games, where every coin you spend and every lie you tell will eventually matter, then yes, your grace Snowfall might be your brand of medieval misery. It launches on May 8th on PC, with console versions coming out later this year. At number 5, we have another unique indie side-scrolling RPG adventure that I'm certain I'll mess up the pronunciation of, and that is Baja and the Waquac Tree. This game is a 2D platform adventure deeply rooted in Arabian mythology. It's set in the underwater realm of Maine, a once thriving ocean. Maine is now corrupted by dark entities, and players must harness the power of light to illuminate the dark ocean, shield themselves from lurking dangers, and dispel dark entities to restore the ocean's radiance. The game features seamless swimming mechanics inspired by Arabic calligraphy, allowing for fluid movement through a vibrant ecosystem and decaying ruins. Players will also have to decipher ancient relics and inscriptions to solve puzzles rooted in these ancient ruins, all whilst uncovering the secrets of an old forgotten kingdom. So by the looks of things, gameplay might be similar to Dave the Diver when he's underwater or in the Sea People's Village, which is exactly the kind of immersive experience I'm hoping for with this sort of game, along with heaps of unique NPCs with stories to tell that expand upon the world and mythology it's based on. That's my cup of tea, but let's be frank, even if this were just a straight up platformer with no NPCs and very little story, I'd still be here for it, as the vibrant colours and the unique setting and even the soundtrack are just that good. They seriously give me the same vibes that the Abzu trailer gave from way back, but from what I can see, it aims to be so much more. So, if this does seem like your kind of game, you'll be able to pick up your own copy on May 8th for PC via Steam.
Next up on our list is an action RPG called Imperial. It's set way out in some distant corner of the galaxy where a deep space expedition stumbles across this massive monolith built by an ancient, long-lost civilization. But here's the catch. This isn't just some lifeless ruin, it's very much alive, with threats, strange energies, and reality-bending tech galore inside. You'll play as an elite mercenary, tasked with entering the monolith, surviving whatever's waiting inside, and uncovering secrets that could completely rewrite what humanity thought it knew about its place in the universe. Gameplay-wise, your character wields high-tech versions of what are basically fantasy weapons, but if you don't like the fantasy weapons, there's also the modern weapons like cannons and guns for the normal player. Along with that, the combat itself gives me this weird fusion vibe. It sort of feels like a sci-fi Elden Ring with dodge rolls, timed parries, intimidating world designs, towering godlike statues, and even ghostly silhouettes of other players wandering around in their own single-player world. But at the same time, it also has this weird God of War heaviness in that it has lots of deliberate strikes, chunky impacts, flashy finishes, and special abilities that really let you slam enemies into the ground. So, all in all, if they can really nail that balance between the crunchy, satisfying combat and an immersive, ancient sci-fi lore world-building experience, Imperial could end up being one of those slow burn sleeper hits. So, if you're sold on the idea and want to jump right in, the game launches on May the 8th for PlayStation, Xbox, and PC.
At number 7, we've got a game that's still in early development, and that's the sandbox open world RPG, Project Mist. Now, I won't go too deep into it since it's clearly early days, but if you want a quick mental picture, just think 7 Days to Die with a heavy dash of paranormal weirdness. From the gameplay we've seen, it looks like a lot of the assets and vibes are pretty similar to 7 Days, but where the game throws hordes of zombies at you, Project Mist replaces them with giant, freaky flying whales, and all sorts of bizarre creatures wandering across a desolate hellscape. If this sounds like your kind of thing, you can jump into the madness when Project Mist launches on PC on May the 8th. Next up on my list is a game that was originally supposed to drop last month, but ended up getting delayed into May, and that's Yasha Legends of the Demon Blade. Set during Japan's Edo period, Yasha throws you into a world where the fragile peace between humans and demons has been shattered by the rise of a nine-tailed fox, which has plunged everything into chaos. In the game, you'll take on the role of 3 unique heroes, an immortal ninja, an Oni emissary, and a demon samurai, each with totally different combat styles and their own separate storylines, meaning there's going to be a lot of replayability if you want to experience everything this world has to offer. Gameplay-wise, the fighting reminds me a lot of fast-paced roguelikes, or sorta like the action-heavy combat you see in the recently released Ys memoir, Oath and Felghana, in which you have tight, combo-driven actions that feel super fluid and responsive, and along the way you'll also have to master a huge variety of demon blades and collect hundreds of soul orbs that grant unique talents. And at the same time, you even have options to cook up fantasy ramen to boost your stats between battles, so all that good RPG buffs, debuffs, and whatnot. And to top it all off, this is all wrapped up in a stunning, hand-drawn art style that makes the game look like a living painting, and they've paired it with storytelling that leans heavily into the visual novel format, rich with character moments and layered narratives, so again appealing to that replayability and just overall world immersion. So with its beautiful visuals, dynamic combat, hidden stages, and side activities like meeting friendly demons at festivals, and cooking, Yasha Legends of the Demon Blade looks like it could end up being a real sleeper hit for action JRPG fans. That sounds like your kind of game? You can grab a copy when it releases on PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, and PC on May the 15th. At number 9 on our list, we have Void Sails, which if I had to pitch in a single sentence, would be Dredge meets Sea of Thieves meets Skies of Arcadia. Play as the captain of a flying ship, sailing through the skies in search of your missing father, and along the way, you'll explore alien worlds, collect occult artifacts, and tangle with all sorts of hostile forces, both physical and cosmic. The whole thing leans hard into the dark, Lovecraftian atmosphere, and your choices actually shape the story as you upgrade your ship and uncover the twisted secrets lurking just behind the veil. Now, I tried out the demo, back when it released during Steam's Next Fest, and that is still available on Steam if you are curious and want to give it a go. But be warned, it is a very early slice of the game in that it shows some serious promise, but a bunch of the features teased in the latest trailers, like fleshed out locations, deeper encounters, and more refined mechanics, just aren't there. Which honestly makes me feel like they're holding back a lot for the full release. But what the demo does have is sort of overshadowed by some of the things it didn't have, just because they're a personal bug for me, in that the demo didn't have a journal system in that you couldn't review past decisions, nor was there a map to show you where you were or where you were going, and it had you collecting items and loot, and didn't really give you an inventory to view, which makes it feel a bit clunkier, but given the nature of the game, I have no doubt those will be added as development progresses because you can't really have what they're aiming to do without them, so I'm not too worried about that. But with what was in place, well, that was ship movement, cannon fire, loot collection, and a weird D20 style of checks that allow you to fail or pass things and still progress the story either way, but with a slight variation. That was relatively smooth and solid. And quite frankly, the D20 aspect that you can fail and still progress the story but a slightly different way makes it feel unique. And as for the narrative, well, from what we do see, it leans into that slow burn Lovecraftian dread, as the story unfolds a lot like Dredge in that you dock at a location and get hit with a visual novel style encounter, but instead of showing the characters on screen talking to you, the experience is written out on an in-game journal, a journal that you can't reread yet, which kind of annoyed me. But it was still good in that it showed your dialogue, your background information, and even showed your choices of either decision or speech on the book. And when you click them, it then shows you the next page and so on as you're going. It's a small thing, but it adds a surprising layer of immersion. It's almost like flipping through one of those old choose-your-own-adventure books you'd read as a kid. And while the demo itself didn't really go full horror, the tone is definitely unsettling, especially if you're a fan of Lovecraftian mythos, because I've read a few of the books and get a lot of the references. And what I mean by that is, well, the man who sets your journey in motion is literally called the Man in Yellow, which is a direct reference to Hystera. And if you don't know who that is, it's not as scary, but given that I have read the mythos and a lot of its offshoots, the little reference itself hits like a chill down the spine. And it is a subtle, but it does plant the seeds of madness early on, and I really want to see how that grows and they expand upon that. So, if you are like me and love some good Lovecraftian horror in your games, you can grab a copy of this PC exclusive when it drops on May the 15th. And coming in last on my list, wrapping up the lineup of epic releases dropping in the first half of May, is the latest game from a franchise that honestly needs no introduction, and that's Doom: The Dark Ages. Now, I don't know what I can really say to sell you on this one if you aren't already interested. It's Doom. Expect the usual, brutal, in-your-face combat full of guns, chainsaws, and pure adrenaline. But this time there is a twist. It takes place in a dark fantasy setting, very similar to the Middle Ages of Europe, and will explore an earlier period in the life of the Doomslayer, essentially serving as a prequel to Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. You'll once again step into his blood-stained boots during a brutal war against Hell, battling across ruined castles, ancient hellscapes, and cursed forests. The game promises to expand the lore even further, showing us how the Slayer became the living legend, feared by demons across the universe. The combat will still capture the classic, vicious and grounded Doom feel, but now you'll also be wielding brutal new weapons, like the shield saw, alongside the iconic shotgun we all know and love. And with ID Software pushing even bigger, more expansive levels than ever before, Doom: The Dark Ages is shaping up to be not just any other shooter, but an epic cinematic war against hell itself. So if you're keen to shoot, chop and punch your way through hordes of demons in a dark medieval setting, consider grabbing Doom: The Dark Ages when it launches on May 15th for Xbox, PlayStation and PC. And that wraps up my list of 10 games releasing in the first half of May that I personally found exciting or worth keeping an eye on.
If you've made it this far into the video, I hope it helped you lock onto a title or two, and if not, don't worry about it, I've got another great video planned covering 10 more games coming out later this month. Also, sorry that this one's a few days late, I had to rewrite the script after a few titles on the original list got pushed back, and during the rewriting process. I got sick and also realised the video was going to be way too big anyway, hence why we're getting a second video this month. But either way, let me know in the comments which game you're most hyped for, and as always, if you enjoyed this month's rundown, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss next month's list or any other gaming goodies in between. Thanks for watching and happy gaming. I'll see you all in the next one.